Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with PK all the way from Tucson. How are you, PK?
Oh, I'm just absolutely fabulous. It's a beautiful day, the light breeze, all that fun stuff. Woo. Can't ask for more than this.
Good. That's good. Well, the leaves are changing here, and it's not freezing cold at the moment, so that's all good. I'm happy to report that. So tonight, well, before we get into tonight's show, but I just want to mention we've got a great friend and a great guest on for tonight's show. And this is a very, very spooky, deep kind of dive we're going to be doing tonight into the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. But before we go there, I just wanted to remind everybody, PK is back in the saddle again. If you would like a numerology reading, please reach out to her. She's all set and ready to go and tell you what to expect for your coming year. So don't hesitate to get a hold of her. You can reach her through supernaturalgirls.com or patriciakirkman.com. And we have lots and lots of health products on our supernaturalgirls.com website. So go there and check them out. They all come with discounts for our listeners. So go ahead and take a look. One of my favorite products are the liquid vitamins. Let me tell you, I am so tired of pills and capsules. It's like, ooh, can't do it anymore. So the liquids, they taste really pretty good, and it's easy. I don't have to worry about choking on these capsules and pills anymore. So take a look. There's lots of stuff there. We have the laser watch. We have the air energy device. We've got things for spas, things for personal use. It's all there on the homepage of Supernatural Girlz. So tonight, we have a show that is, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it, because usually we don't go into true crime. But the reason we're going into true crime is because of the paranormal elements that are involved with this crime. It's a very disturbing crime. I'm going to give everybody a trigger warning. This is something that I know they made a recent docudrama about on Hulu called, what was it, something about the ashes. But anyways, there's been a lot written about it. We were introduced to this crime by Rene Barnett, again, a dear friend. She is a sister podcaster from Night Vision, and also a television producer, a movie producer, and from Oklahoma. And so we're going to bring her on the show right now. And then, PK, I'm going to hand it over to you to do the numbers of this crime, because this is what you did several years ago. When we had a show, I know Rene did part one. She did all the investigative work and had the investigators themselves on her show. We followed up with a Native American medicine man who trained under Mad Bear Anderson, Michael Bastine. We also had George Lugo with us, and we talked about the paranormal aspects and the very dark sorcery that was used and the hold it had on everybody related to this crime. So let's get Rene on with us. Rene, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to be back, as always.
Thank you.
I was explaining on the before we went on the air live, I sort of had to move heaven and earth to be here today, but it was so important. I mean, first of all, I love being with you guys again. And the other thing is, this is a story that I've just been sort of obsessed with for years and decades and decades and decades now, and starting from the very, very day that it happened. And it was really prominent in Oklahoma. It was actually probably the most famous murder case ever, still to this day in Oklahoma, and it caused so much upset and division among the population because there was a lot of disagreement about the suspect. Was he guilty? Was he not guilty? So it was really wild. And then, as it turned out, I was really closely connected in so many ways to the case or to people involved in the case that it just, weighed on my mind so much that over the years, I just kept looking at everything that was released on it. And then two of the OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation agents, two brothers, Mike and Dick Wilkerson, wrote a book way back when called Someone Cry for the Children, which, of course, I read as soon as I was able to get my greasy little paws on it. And my sisters and my mother as well, we were all just caught up with it. But there were a lot of things. So I don't know where you want to start. Let's telling this story. I mean,
we'll start with a couple things. First of all, yeah, we can go there. But first, I wanted to talk with PK a little bit about the numbers of this because PK did the numbers last time when we had the shows that we shared together. And I also want to say before you go for it, PK, this crime, and when you told me about it, Rene, it just left such a mark. I mean, I felt like, oh my God, I can never get this out of my mind now. I mean, you talk about how obsessed you became. I didn't feel necessarily obsessed, but I felt like, oh my God, I can never forget this. Never. This is so horrible that this happened to these three little girls, and all of these things that happened around it that were so odd and so deeply dark. And the poor parents, I mean, I watched the interviews, as I know you did, with the parents, and my heart still breaks for them after all these years. Just awful. Yes. But let's get you on, PK, to talk about the numbers of this. What did you find?
Well, at the point in time that this was taking place, the cabin that the girls were in was an 8. An 8 deals with authority and authority figures, but it also is extremely karmic. 8s and 4s are always karmic regardless of whatever takes place. And 4 deals with the restriction, and 8 deals with the authority that think they're in charge. And I think that the perpetrator of the crime, bless his little pea-picking heart, his dislike for females was foisted because of his issues with his mother. The father wasn't part of the picture. And he and his mother, I want to say that there was like a love-hate that went in there. And he couldn't eliminate the mother figure because he still needed her. And I use the word needed. So he would take his issues with women or the feminine side, children. That was something he felt he could overpower. There was a big draw between he and his mother because she basically withdrew and had the father, so the father was gone. So he blamed her for that. And so they had this love-hate situation going on. And then when he became involved with the medicine man, what he was taught, instead of using it for good, which he could have, everything was turned against him. He ended up being overly frustrated by what he couldn't make happen. I think he thought when he got involved with the medicine man that he was going to cure his main issues, and instead it enhanced what he thought was the hearts that he could salvage and put together another world for him, because he was not doing well with others. He was kind of brutal in one respect, and yet he would try to be kind in others. So people saw him in a different light all the time. They just couldn't quite understand him because he couldn't understand himself or how he was raised. Anything to do with authority figures totally blew his mind, because he wanted to be the one in control. He could control those little girls, but he couldn't control his mother. It was like he was on a teeter-totter, not sure which end to go first. Does that make sense?
It does.
It does to me. From what I know of his personal relationships, his father was absent. His mother was a woman named Ella Mae Buckskin, and they did have a close relationship, but I know he had problems with women. You know, he was estranged from his wife time, and this did not come out publicly. The agents held us back just because they didn't want to cause any more pain for this child, but apparently he had molested a child in the family, and I won't identify what relationship it was to him. But so we sort of have that. And, of course, you know, he had other crimes that he had been convicted of that involved young women, and he, you know, was actually an escaped convict at the time that he committed these crimes. So he
had a love-hate with his mother, though, and
I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't. That makes sense.
Yeah,
it certainly could have been that way. Yeah.
But when it was good between the two of them, he felt safe and secure. If she deviated the least bit from it, then he had to retaliate. And I think that's when he, and I don't know whether, if you want to say, possibly he tried to approach his mother in a sexual way and was rebuffed, or he used other members of the family to prove to her that he was, shall we say, desirable.
I mean, and of course, this is absolutely pure speculation, but maybe she abused him.
It's quite
a possibility, because the father was gone. Now, the major issue, taking a look at everything, seems to be the female is definitely the major issue with him. But, it could be, that makes good sense that it could be just the other way around, because of the father being gone.
Clues further into the case that show that problem that he had, but it was just, I mean, all the way around, it was such an unusual case and with unusual elements to it. But you know, of course, initially it was just a murder. You know, it was a horrible. I remember the night of the 13th when it first came out on the news. And I was actually just leaving Oklahoma in my 10-year-old station wagon, headed for Los Angeles, going to move to L.A. And as I was driving through this, you know, desolate area through, like, western Oklahoma, and I heard it come up on the radio that there had been a murder of 3 little Girl Scouts at Camp Scott in Oklahoma. And of course, you know, I was just like, oh my gosh, you know, and they kept talking about it, you know, in each newscast on the radio. And, you know, when I talked to my family, you know, of course, they knew all about it. And it captured the attention of everyone. And
this is back in 1977 too. So this is back.
Right.
This is long ago, when this is way before all these school shootings that numbed us out. And this is a time of life and history when things were much more innocent. And this was so totally unexpected.
Oh, yeah. It took place in a universal 6-year. We're talking about it again, and it is, again, a universal 6-year.
Oh,
wow.
wow.
It's ironic.
Interesting.
Yes.
It's 6 feet for perfection, and it deals with the family issues. But we're going into next sequence are going to be there's something else that's going to come out about this. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's not next month. I don't know why I'm getting that. But there's something that's going to be pulled out of the rabbit's hat.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Well, so tell us the beginning of this also, Rene, because these 3 little girls each had their own story about getting to the camp. One of them didn't want to go, cried and screamed, said, "Don't make me go."
Well, yeah, she didn't really want to go. I don't know if she was crying and screaming, but she didn't want to go. And then once she got there, she was really upset, and she wanted to call her mother and to come and get her. And the counselor said, okay, well, just, take it easy tonight, and if you're still feeling this upset tomorrow, we'll let you call your mother. And then, of course, they didn't make it to tomorrow. But what had happened was, the group of Girl Scouts and their parents all gathered at this church in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, to catch the buses to go to Camp Scott. And they arrived, and once they got there, they were all together in this, dining area or some larger area, and they were all allowed to choose their own roommates. And so the girls all got chosen up, and there were 3 little girls that were left over. And that was our 3 girls. They didn't know anyone else, and so that's why they didn't get chosen by anyone else. And so it was Lori Farmer, Denise Gousset, and, I'm sorry, that's not her first name. The other girl's name is Doris Denise Milner. Yeah, Michelle Gousset. And so they got together, and they went, to their tent. And because they were assigning the tents by number, the first group got number 1 and 2 and so on. And so these 3 little girls were left for the last tent, number 8, which was the furthest tent away from the counselors. And it was at the edge of the camp and right next to the woods, right, next to a big wooded area. The whole area is forested and wooded. And so then what happened was, in the night, this one counselor heard some noises, and she, when she went up to go to the bathroom, because they had these outdoor, toilets set up, and she heard these noises, and she described it as like a growling, like a frenzied animal attack or some kind of a weird growling noise. And so she looked and she saw a very dim light in the woods, and she shined her flashlight toward that, and it went off. And then she turned off her light, and in moments all of it resumed. She saw the light come back on. She turned on her flashlight again to look, and it went off again. She ended up finally just going back to her cabin or her tent and went to bed, and she could hear these noises, and I know in the book it was described as, those grunting, horrible noises just became a part of her dreams. And she just assumed it was, an animal out there in the woods, making noises and, whatever. So then the next morning, I believe it was the same counselor gets up, and she's only like 19 years old or something, and she goes out and she sees something out in the road, and she saw that it was like a sleeping bag or something, and she says, "Oh my goodness, who left this?" And she went, and then she realized there was a girl in it, and she was dead. And then quickly, they found the other little girl, and then on back toward the woods a little bit more, they found the third one. And of course, everyone went into shock. As it turned out, I was just leaving, as I was saying, I was moving out to California from Tulsa, but I had been a news reporter there. And as it turned out, my boss was a guy named Richard Dowdell, and he immediately rushed out to the scene and, covered the story, and ended up being the only journalist that this murder suspect would speak with on camera.
Oh my goodness.
And he, got so caught up in the story, and he tells me to this day, this was the story of my career. This was the story of a lifetime, And, but anyway, so as it turns out, this guy becomes a suspect, this escaped convict named Gene Leroy Hart. But Gene Hart was, sort of like a dichotomy, like you guys were saying. He was like, on the one hand, he was a local football star, Native American, Oklahoma pride, all that. And on the other hand, he had this dark side. He was obviously, an assaulter of women and children. So he couldn't have been all that wonderful. But anyway, a lot of people saw him as, the Indian brave, being pursued by the jackbooted police officers who just, wanted to get somebody nailed for this crime because it was so horrendous. And on the other hand, the Cherokee people, he was a member of the Cherokee Nation, the Cherokees could not believe or accept that one of their own would have committed such a heinous act on small children like this, because it ran, contrary to everything they believe in. So they just couldn't accept that one of their own had done this sort of thing. So it was a big argument among families, argument, among communities, and among journalists, and all kinds of things. It was a super big deal.
Yeah. Well, and how hard that was on the victims' families to see that this guy was being sheltered by the Cherokee Nation and protected and defended, and here are their children that are never coming back. So I mean, how hard was it for them and all the people that felt that Gene Hart did this? They felt, some of the law enforcement felt they had enough to have him tried, and they eventually did. But in the meantime, setting the stage for this, it was one nightmare after another with this cover-up for for the fact he did it.
It was, and the sort of strange aspects of the case, started right away. As I said, even before the murders occurred, I know the evening that Denise Milner and the other girls had left for camp, Denise Milner had a younger sister, I think she was like 5 years old, named Kathy, I think. And that evening, she said to her mother, what happens why does everybody have to die? And her mother said, well, we die, and we make room for, new people to come in. When a baby's born, that's a new person coming in. And she said her daughter just looked at her 5-year-old daughter, and she said, tonight everybody's going to die. And her mom, thought that was really weird, but, of course, brushed it off and, just reassured her that everything was fine. And then, of course, the next day, we find out what they did was, and of course, they loaded up all the girls on the buses and shot them back over to Broken Arrow, which is a, suburb of Tulsa. All these little girls were from Tulsa. And their parents were told to go to the church there and wait for them. And they all knew that 3 were dead, but they didn't know which ones.
My God.
So can you imagine those parents standing there, waiting for those buses, and then waiting for the kids to come off and waiting for your child? It was just crazy. And another interesting little connection that I had, personal connection with the story, was that my sister's best friend, her daughter was in tent number 7. So she was in the tent right next door.
Wow.
And all over the place. And, of course, with the police officers and the district attorney that handled the case and all that stuff. I knew all those people because of my work as a news reporter. So it's like every aspect of this case, it just like I felt like such a personal connection with. But anyhow, so they ended up conducting this manhunt, for Gene Hart. They couldn't catch him. They couldn't find him. It was the biggest manhunt in Oklahoma history. They had everything. They brought everything to bear. They had helicopters. They had, state police, county police, local police. They had I don't know if they had the FBI. I don't think so, but the OSBI. They had helicopters. They had tracking dogs. They had everything, and they just couldn't catch this guy. They brought these dogs out from Pennsylvania that were supposed to be these special tracking dogs. And one by one, something happened with them. Like one just took off running and got hit by a car in the highway, which was totally out of character for these highly trained professionals. These dogs, they just don't do that.
No,
they would also track. They would be on a trail. They would track the suspect. They would get a trail on him, and then they would end up right in the middle of a meadow, and just start going in circles. It was as though he had taken flight. We got lifted up. Right, the trail just ended in the middle of a field. So they did everything, to try to find this guy, but yet he was turning up at local, events like I don't know if you know much about Cherokee Indian religion or anything like that, but part of their religious practice is the stomp dance, and they would have these stomp dances in the woods, and he would show up at these stomp dances and participate. And then he would disappear back into the woods, but they could not catch this guy. So finally, one of the agents decided he was going to go visit a medicine man. And so he went to this man he knew. Last name is Croslin. I can't remember what his first name is or was. But he was a medicine man. He gave them some medicine to put in little medicine bags and wear around their necks for protection when they were out there looking for this guy. And he told them one thing they could do is, walk apart, because if he gets between you and you're both wearing these, he won't be able to see you, either one of you. And then it will also help you keep on his trail. You pour some of the medicine on the trail and you won't lose the trail. And so very odd things happened while they were out there looking. One night, the two Wilkerson brothers, Mike and Dick Wilkerson, decided to just be like two guys out, hunting and fishing, camping, and went out in the woods and just to see, what they could see or what would happen. And they, like just about everyone else in Oklahoma, were part Indian, so they were trying to connect, with that part of themselves, and in order to, do what they needed to do to track this killer down of these little girls. So one night they were out there, they were sitting around the campfire, and they were taking turns, staying awake. And one of them was asleep, the other one was sitting there, and he said he just about was nodding off, and out of nowhere came this big black cat, just screaming out of the darkness, and jumped right on his chest. And he said, but as soon as he hit that medicine bag, it's like he screamed and scurried away. But it was just, he said it was so weird, and we don't really have big black cats in Oklahoma.
No, you don't.
That's what he said he experienced. And when they talked to their medicine man, they said, he said, this suspect, he said, whoever this is, this person has the help of a very powerful medicine man.
Right.
And the officer said, but wait a minute, I thought you could not use the medicine for evil purposes. He said, well, you can, but if you do, you'll die. And he says the medicine man may not know he may believe Gene Hart, but if Gene Hart is using the medicine man, or whoever the suspect is, he'll die. And he conducted this ceremony right there with the guys, and he took out this old tobacco ancient tobacco that they almost never use any of because it's so precious and so rare. But he used this little bit of tobacco, and all I know is it involved moving water and this ancient tobacco. But he wouldn't share any of the other elements of the ceremony. But the ceremony said that whoever committed this crime stands on the blood of these little girls, whoever did it, if it's Gene Hart, if it's somebody else, but whoever did it will die. So they went out, they did their thing, they kept looking for him. One of the agents who, Patricia, I know you'll remember Harvey Pratt.
That's right, yeah, I do.
Yeah, he's Cheyenne Arapaho, but he also was involved in the World Trade Center bombing. I believe he did a recreation of one of the perpetrators. He's an artist as well. And anyway, so Harvey's a very, very interesting and cool guy. He is very much into his Native American heritage. And so one night when they had a base camp set up down near the lake, not far from Camp Scott, and they had trailers and everything, mobile phones and all that stuff. Back when hardly anyone had a mobile phone, it was phones in your car, that you could get that cost like $100 a second to use. I had one in my car from the radio station that I work at. I got in trouble for using it, so I know. But anyway, they were doing their thing, and they were saying, gosh, we need a break. We need a break of some kind. And I guess they looked up and they noticed that Harvey was gone. And they went out looking for him, and he was down by the water, and he was doing a ceremony with some cedar branches. I know a lot of people, think sage is the thing, but where I come from in Oklahoma, they use more cedar than anything, but also some sage. But cedar branches are supposed to be the ultimate. And so anyway, he was, smudging, as it's called, but there they call it smoking yourself. And the two guys walked down, and they said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'll tell you, but if you laugh, that's it. I'm not telling you another thing." Mm-hmm. And they said, no. And so he said, "I'm, purifying myself." And he says, "And I'm sending out this smoke. And this smoke is going to go out, and it's going to land on someone somewhere that can help us." And the guy said, "Well, can you do us too?" So they weren't, making fun of it at all. They were all in to, try anything at this point, and they had a lot of respect for Harvey, so they said, "Sure, let's try anything." So he did them. Just as he finished, the phone at the mobile camp rang, and it was a man who was a professional photographer who also taught a photography class at the McAllister State Prison in Oklahoma. And what had happened was, in their searches for this guy, they found places where he had been staying, caves and things like that. And in one, they found a flashlight, that had plastic over the end and just a little pinhole cut. So that's why the counselor just saw the dim light in the forest.
Right.
And they found some other items, and they also found some photographs, or a photograph of a wedding. And so they had actually published this picture in the newspapers and said, "Can anybody identify, this wedding?" And so they get this call from this photographer. He says, "I shot that wedding, that's my work, and, it was blah, blah, blah." And he said, it ended up, the film, at the film class, at the prison developed the film, and the guy that developed that film was Gene Hart.
Oh,
and the reason that he took the picture was because the bride looked very, very similar to his estranged wife that he hated. And so that's why they feel he just nicked that one picture. But they tied him directly to the photograph, directly to the other evidence in the cave, the flashlight and some other things. Anyway, ultimately, they did find him. And where did they find him? They found him at the cabin of the medicine man that he was using.
Sam
Pigeon.
was right.
Sam Pigeon.
That's
in the Cookson Hills, way in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you have no idea how dense these woods are back in that area. I mean, you could so get lost so easily. And, just in the middle of nowhere. And when they got him out of the house, he was wearing a pair of women's glasses. And they were glasses that he stole from one of the tents at Camp Scott that night. So put him right on the scene, everything. I mean, they really had him dead to rights. They really, really did. But then the trial, came, and there was still a lot of, like I said, a lot of division on his guilt or innocence. He still had the help of
everybody.
Sorry?
He had the help of everybody.
He
had the help of Sam Pigeon, who was still doing medicine stuff for him and sorcery for him. Mm-hmm. And this trial, it started in 1979, and then all these big-time lawyers wanted to represent him, thinking, they'd get their publicity out of it. So it became this, this great way to get famous, to be associated with this nightmare. And again, the poor parents, the poor families that are sitting watching all of it. But he escaped for 10 months after the murder. 10 months.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
he was
like
flying around the countryside and living with Sam Pigeon and being hidden.
Area. Never left the area. Left the area. That's
right.
Crazy.
And so thank God for Harvey doing that ceremony with the cedar it brought that man in with about the photos, because really they did need a break. They were getting nowhere fast with all of this. And I'm sure, I have no doubt in my mind that Sam Pigeon was doing sorcery so that it would cover him, so people wouldn't find him, because honestly, it makes no sense until you add the sorcery piece of why they didn't find him sooner.
But in a way, it was like hiding in plain sight, because everybody knew
but he was also
there, but they didn't see him.
Whoops. But he was, I'm sorry, I got some beeping going on here. There you go. So sorry. Anyway, the thing was that it was like they now what it was said was that he was, studying Indian mysticism. Now, Gene Hart was a member of the Katua band of Cherokee Indians, and the Katua are known as, or called the original people, because they still practice the old ways. They still, do a lot of medicine and stomp dance and all that. The Cherokee Nation itself is much more sort of assimilated, but the Katua is more like the old style, tribe. And they do, they're sort of the shaman tribe, of the Cherokees. So
okay, that makes sense.
They have a lot more to do with that sort of thing. And it was said that he was, studying medicine, to become a medicine man, and that he was able to do things like either, make himself invisible or change form. They believed that he could change like into a bird. They thought perhaps he might have been that black cat, that jumped on them, that sort of thing. But that's the kind of things. And then, of course, during the trial, there were, it was in the newspapers. I mean, that, there were 4 medicine men, at the courthouse today, doing ceremonies at the 4 corners of the courthouse. And the goal was, to make him innocent or to confuse the jury. So even though they had all those elements tied down, and it was
more.
No one hard.
They also had the same MO that he used to kidnap and rape 2 other pregnant women, right? He used the same kind of black tape.
Yep.
Luckily, they got away.
Yep.
But there were such strong similarities.
Girls, they were so lucky.
Yeah.
Oh, that's for sure.
And,
he left
but
them.
again, there was a match in terms of actual evidence, a match, and he still got off.
Yeah. Well, he didn't get off. Exactly. He still got off with the girls, but with the young women that he jumped in their car.
Yeah, he was in jail for that.
Outside that club that night. They were so lucky because, of course, he took them out into the woods, assaulted them, tied them up, and then was going to leave and come back later for more. And they were able to get loose. One of them got loose and got the other one loose, and they got the heck out of there. Thank God. And I can't imagine what that experience would have been like. I mean, they were thinking,
had to be a
this
nightmare.
is it for me.
Yeah, thank God that they had the strength to get out. But this is, again, so troubling, and the only way I can understand it is with the complete use of sorcery, dark sorcery, to protect him. And as you said, having these medicine men coming in to confuse the jury, standing in the 4 corners areas, doing ceremony for this perpetrator, this predator.
Yeah.
It's really so offensive, the whole thing, that they are that they did this kind of thing for him.
Do you feel that they thought he was innocent?
They didn't. The people didn't really believe that he did it.
That's what I was thinking.
That's true. I know they didn't believe it. They didn't want to believe it because I know one of the lawmen that they interviewed, who was Native American, when he first heard about this, and he thought of Gene Hart, and he said, "Please don't let this be a Native American who did this."
Yeah,
and
right.
And also he mentioned that they were all scared to death. They brought their bullets to medicine men to be blessed because they were so afraid of the kind of sorcery that was being used. And again, I think what's so important for people to understand is that this magic, this sorcery, this witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, is real. It's very real. It's very powerful. And PK, you and I were talking earlier today about, was he mentally ill? I think you're right when you said he was. And that makes this type of sorcery even more powerful because when you're mentally ill, you have no boundaries in your mind, and this stuff just happens instantaneously. You have instant access to calling upon these dark energies, these demonic energies, and I think that's what this guy was up to, and then getting all this help from other medicine men. So, but in the end, he was, jogging around the jail yard? And he was only 34 when he dropped dead of a heart attack.
I think he was 27.
He was 27. Oh, my God. So he's even younger.
Incredible. Yeah, and they did a, so what happened was, he had to be returned to prison because he was still had some time to serve for those other crimes.
Right.
And so he got sent back to prison even though he was acquitted for these crimes. And then it wasn't long after, I think it was, like within a month or, very short period of time, he was jogging around the prison yard and just dropped dead. And they did an autopsy, and they said he was a perfect physical specimen and had no explanation for why his heart just stopped. And I thought, well, maybe there is an explanation.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I think there is one.
Was maybe from the other side. They were taking him home.
Well, he was done that ceremony. The ceremony. They called it the ceremony of ultimate truth, and that the ultimate truth is whoever did this act stands on the blood of these 3 children, and they must die. So that was really, it was just so fascinating. And there were other things, that happened, that, smaller things, but things that would just come up constantly that just were so unusual about this case. The really weird thing was, I want to say, I can't remember, and it's been so long now, but I think there were something like 38 agents on the Bureau of, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations. And on the day that Gene Hart was acquitted, 36 of them quit.
Oh, my God.
Including Mike.
Can't blame them for that.
Yep.
Wow.
And they said, what's it for? What's it all for? And it really, was like, there was one of the guys, I can't remember what his last name was, but he was another guy that was like half Indian. His name was Larry something. He quit and moved down to Florida and lived on a boat, for the next, I don't know. He may still be there, I don't know. But he was one of the first ones on the case. He was there at the autopsies, and it just tore him up, It was
because they knew this guy did it. They knew he did it.
Yeah, they knew this guy did it. They had seen what he did to the little girls. They saw the bodies, and they knew what the little girls had gone through in horrible detail. And he just wasn't the same.
Living a nightmare.
Yeah, I bet he wasn't
no
the
justice.
same. Yeah.
Justice would have probably, helped that out a little bit. If you knew at least you were able to do something, to bring some relief to the parents and the families of those little girls. I think you would feel like, okay, now I've, gotten them justice, they can rest in peace. But they didn't get that.
Mm-mm.
So that was.
Now you wonder about when he was in prison, all the other prisoners felt towards him because of the big children, and if they had anything to do with his end result.
I don't think so, because he really wasn't there very long. Number one, after it happened, he was acquitted of the children. Mm-hmm. So, what he was back in prison for, I mean, the girls were like, 18 and 19 or something like that he was convicted for. Plus, there was interestingly, he broke into the apartment of a Tulsa police officer, a woman. Oh, he didn't realize she was a police officer, but that's how he ended up getting caught that time, because she got the best of him. But anyway, it was.
There were also, Rene, there were clues, because I was reading an article where things I had never heard before were talked about, and in this article they said that there was actually, have you heard this one? There was a note written, and the note said, "We are going to kill 3 children."
Patricia,
and then they found.
I just read that today. I had never heard that.
Okay.
I was like, oh my God, is that just misinformation, or is that real? But what they said was, because it was what I did was I just Googled Oklahoma Girl Scout murders and looked on Wikipedia just to remind myself of some of the names of people.
Yeah.
And they said there was this note, but they said in the Wikipedia article that note was brought out in the civil case.
Oh,
so
okay.
If that's the case, then that must have been true. But honestly, I've never heard anyone ever mention that before. That doesn't mean it's not true. But
yeah, exactly.
I was
flabbergasted
by that.
Yeah, and there was something else too.
Number one, the note said they were going to coming back to murder 3 girls in tent number 1.
Oh, okay.
Which is weird.
So he ended up in 8.
First of all, how would they know there'd be 3 girls in a tent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all the tents had 4 girls except for number 8.
Well, he obviously had access to very powerful sorcery that allowed him great freedom and the ability to do these heinous acts, and then hide out for 10 months before he could be caught. So, that's a lot of power. And again, anybody doesn't think the stuff is real, it's real. And I was very naive when we first started having some Native American people on the show. Michael Bastine explained to me, because he was talking about Mad Bear Anderson using, people was using witchcraft in the tribe against Mad Bear, a very famous medicine man. And I said, you got to be kidding me. What are you talking about, Native Americans using witchcraft? He's like, oh, yeah, it's a big thing. And he talked about several events that happened where people sent, bad mojo over to Mad Bear, but Mad Bear knew what he was doing. He knew how to handle it and knew how to send it right back to where it came from. But that was news to me. So, but dark energy, dark sorcery is not news to me. But hearing the story and knowing that this Native American was using that is so awful, so troubling on every level, and that he got away with it in terms of our traditional system of justice, but he didn't get away with it in the end because of the ceremony that was done.
Yep, that's right. He didn't get away with anything in the end, but it is remarkable that there is now like an upsurge in interest in the story again. It's so weird. I think I told you, you reached out about it, and just before you did, another friend of mine reached out to me. She's an old television colleague of mine, Gina Rubenstein. She's executive produced so many shows I wouldn't even know what to name. But anyway, she's a wonderful writer and a great executive producer. And I, of course, had told her this story years ago, and she got the bug, and she and I were working on trying to do something with it. And, we ran into some problems with the agents who are also attorneys and stuff like that. It's, I kind of get why they feel such ownership on the story, but it's not really their story. But anyhow, she had just called me and said, I cannot get this thing off my mind, this story. She said, do you want to work on it and do something? I go, I don't even know what to do, But anyway, we were chatting about it, and then you reached out about doing a show on it, and I thought, that's so weird. And I've been noticing on YouTube, people have been covering this story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All the little crime podcasters and stuff.
Yes,
and
that's right. It's all over TikTok. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I wonder why.
Those 3 photographs anywhere.
Yeah, and I wonder why, all of a sudden there's this upsurge of interest in this horrible story. But, there's got to be, like you were saying, PK, maybe something new will come out about it. But there's some reason why we're all circling back to this event. And I really
think that kind
hope
of happens
that,
too. It's like there's also a whole group of young people that don't know about this story. So they're hearing it for the first time. I've been living with it for 50 years, but they're just now hearing it. What? Oh, Girl Scout camp. Oh my gosh. So I think that may be something, but there may be something afoot as well.
I think there's got to be, because all of a sudden I was contacting you and saying, we should do something with this, and a scripted situation would be great. And then if I see somebody's calling in about it, and let me see if she would like to join our conversation, because I believe she was a Girl Scout at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hi, welcome to the show. Hey there.
Hi, this is Kelly. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Kelly. So glad you called in.
Well, I really had to, and I've been listening, and I was a Girl Scout at the time. I was 11 years old. I went to Girl Scout camp a lot. My mom was a single mom, and we used to sleep out at camps very much like this one, the same type of tents, just all the time. I remember hearing about it, and I was scheduled, and I live in Connecticut, but to me, the distance, I didn't know how far away it was. And I was terrified to go to camp, and I begged my mother not to go. But, her being a single mother, she was a nurse, so she would work all hours of the weekend. And I did end up going. But I tell you, even to this day, nothing has terrified me more than this story. Nothing. Even during the day at camp, and I loved going to camp, I was frightened and terrified every second.
Gosh.
And then it just like, I'm still like, God, how did this affect me so much? And nothing affected it, to this day, nothing affected me more than these murders. And then when I saw, and whenever it would come up, it's like, I don't want to hear about it. I can't talk about it. I can't look at the pictures. And I'm 56 years old now.
Oh my God.
But it was, it was just like, to me, it was just so important that you guys are doing this and bringing a light to it, because the special on Hulu was the first thing I was able to sit through.
Yeah, that was four sessions of it, 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
But they didn't really get into the supernatural part of it. But, and I still to this day could it's like one of those things that just, I really don't even have the words for it. I don't know what the language is for it. But I just know nothing in my life has ever terrified me quite like this murder. And I was all the way over in Connecticut. Even as an adult, Patricia, when you guys did the first radio show about this, I couldn't listen to it. I was too afraid.
Oh my goodness.
And that was just, I think, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, back in 2018, I think we did it.
Yep.
And I just, it's like just such a strange thing. And then hearing about, this, like how they couldn't catch him and how he was using this, dark magic. And it is so hard to wrap your mind around. It never really left me. Whenever I saw something brought up about it, and there hasn't been a lot. That's why I think this is so important, because I think the families, especially, it just were kind of pushed to the side.
They definitely were, Kelly. That's absolutely right. Yeah, they were. They were not treated fairly in any of it.
One of the really sad things that happened with the parents was, I mentioned that my old boss, Richard Dowdell, was the only journalist that Gene Hart would allow to interview him at the jail after he was arrested. And here was Richard. Richard was young, too, at the time. And so this was like the biggest story of his career. And to this day, it still is, even though he had 50 more years of experience.
Right.
But he went to the jail to interview him and found that he was only allowed to ask him a list of prepared questions that Gene Hart had prepared. And they were things like, what kind of music do you like? And he started telling about how he's into classical music and read classics and all. Really just trying to. And Richard, my friend, had built a really strong friendship with all the parents of these girls. And once that interview came out that just had Gene Hart smelling like a rose, the families were so disgusted and disappointed in Richard that they cut him off, and it really hurt his feelings a lot. But he understood it. But it was sort of a sad deal. But that reminds me of something you said, PK, about him being kind of I don't know if you said narcissist, but like in control and all that sort of thing. It does really match up with what you were saying about his personality. He really thought he was smarter than everyone and really liked to control
better
things.
Than everyone.
Yeah.
And Kelly, you also mentioned to me before, when we were talking a few days ago about this, you were mentioning that on the show, Keeper of the Ashes, that they talked about the fact that one of the girls, I'm trying to think which one, God bless her, was tied to a tree and raped and murdered, and then the tree died, right? Isn't that what you were sharing with me about this being on the show?
Wow. Yeah, and that, like, I'm getting chills just thinking about that. And for me who, I've always been very empathic my whole life. And I remember the first time I saw the Twin Towers in New York City, I was in junior high school. And I remember looking up at them and feeling something completely ominous and scary. To the point where I even remember what I was wearing that day. And I could never really, and that was in the 80s, and then, similar to this story, you know, it was just like when they talked about the tree dying, I'm just thinking like, wow, we are so connected on levels that we don't even really know. You know,
sure.
I've been looking into life, you know, life after death or life after life. Just doing a little research into that area recently, and just last night I listened to a man's story who, you know, his big thing was, you know, trees can communicate, you know, and so now we're talking about this tree, and so it makes sense, you know. It's you know, we just don't understand, right? You know how it works, but you know, we are connected to every living thing.
That's for sure.
You know, this event, it was shattering. I mean, this event was shattering on so many levels. And when I watched some of this docudrama on Hulu, Keeper of the Ashes, the tree looked shattered. I mean, you look at it, I mean, it looks like part of it blew up or something. And you understand that because
it looked burned.
Yes.
It looked like part of it was blackened and burned.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I think that this event, this horrible, horrible, tragic event, has that same effect on our psyches. I mean, that's why we can't look at it, we can't look away from it. It's just so shattering on so many levels.
Yeah. It is. It really is amazing, because this has been really the first time I've ever been able to, I mean, I can't believe I'm even talking about it, you know, because I wondered the whole time, you know, when I was at camp, are the other girls afraid? You know, because it wasn't talked about. You know, we're just at camp acting like everything's fine. And again, we didn't know how, you know, where it took place. We just knew it took place. And to me, that could have been like the next state away or an hour away. I didn't know it was in Oklahoma. You know, so it just, to me, and there's also something, again, it's hard to find the language for it, but knowing that the good medicine man, you know, did that ceremony and, you know, that it worked. You know, it's like,
I don't want to make anyone think I'm saying that any of the medicine men were necessarily evil. Even though they were working for Gene Hart, I believe they were being used by him. And, you know, in the
I
same
was thinking more the medicine man who did the ceremony with the tobacco and the
saying on the blood of the children, you know, this one will die. That he took him out, which was the right thing to do.
Yeah, there's something
that was the right thing
about there's something about that, and maybe hopeful is not the right word. Again, you know, where's the language when you talk about these things? But it's like, okay, it didn't matter to, you know, the universe or the Great Spirit that this happened. You know, and that, I think that was just such a huge help, and I hope that, you know, more and more things come out about this, because it's just so important that they be remembered. And
interestingly, all those agents, you know, were either Indian or part Indian, and each and every one of them got more in touch with their native roots because of this case, and interestingly kept it up over the years. And in fact, I met Mike Wilkerson, it's probably been, you know, maybe 15 years ago now, and he still carries that medicine bag with him everywhere. The medicine bag that was with him on this case. Yep.
And what about Harvey Pratt?
Well, Harvey, of course, he never was not in his native roots. Harvey was, you know, Native American all the way, you know, into his heritage, into the practices and all that, you know, much more so than the other guys. Well, the other guys weren't really at all. But, you know, and you know, like I said, just about everyone in Oklahoma is part Indian, you know, or has someone that's Indian in their family. And so it's all, you know, kind of organic there. And some of these, like my mother used to, you know, out here in L.A. would send me little, you know, FedEx envelopes full of cedar branches, you know, when after I moved to California to, you know, to burn and stuff. And it's just, you know, we didn't think anything about it like, oh, this is a weird ritual or something. It's just like, oh, well, here's your cedar branches. You know, don't forget them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's interesting. I think, they very much depended on that help that they got from Mr. Crosland. And
and this was a time.
You said that documentary said that it didn't really contain any of the, you know, spiritual or metaphysical or mysterious aspects of it. Now,
that's why I told Patricia right away. I'm like, hey, there's something you got to see.
Documentary,
but I knew it was missing some pieces.
Yeah,
there is
a
documentary out there. It's very, very old, and you might find it on YouTube. I don't know, but I know that when I was researching this, maybe, you know, I would always go back to it. Sometimes I would get busy on projects, and then I'd end up always going back to the story. And this was one of those times where I was thinking about developing a television series around it called Locust Grove, which Locust Grove is around, you know, where he lived. And anyway, so I was working on that, and it's just amazing how things will continue, you know, to sort of pop up and reveal themselves at strange times. But I haven't picked this back up again probably in 15 years. But when we were doing that, we got hold of a copy of that video. I think we got it from a library somewhere. We wrote to the library or called the library.
What was the name of it, Rene?
It was called Someone Cry for the Children.
Oh, that's the name of it. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, and then it's also the book, you know, by Mike and Dick Wilkerson, Someone Cry for the Children, does contain all those aspects, all the Native American bits that, you know, apparently this new docudrama didn't have. So you know, if you're interested in that aspect, or if any of the listeners are interested, I'd suggest hunting those down. Yeah, what happened is Mike Wilkerson, you know, quit, and he became a producer. And he produced documentaries under his own production company called Barrister Productions, because he's a lawyer. And he never went back to law enforcement. He just worked on films, and he made several, and that was one of them. That was probably the first one that he made. He made some pretty good stuff that didn't get super lot of attention, but like we hear so much right now about the race riots in Tulsa in I think it was 1929. It's just now all coming out and all this stuff. And, I mean, he did a documentary on that, you know, 20, 30 years ago. And it was amazing and extremely revelatory about how that whole thing went down. It was crazy. And then he did one on Lizzie Borden. And he's, you know, done several that were pretty darn good, especially for the time. You know, which was like 20, 30 years ago. But if you're looking for those paranormal aspects, you can find those both in the book and in the video that's called Someone Cry for the Children.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you all so much for talking with me. Patricia, thank you so much. I think this is important work. And it shifted something in me because I'm telling you, a year ago, I couldn't watch this.
Wow.
You know, it is, and it's still curious to me as why this affected me so much, but it just did. You know, and, being only 11.
Especially at your age. You were the same age as the girls, basically.
Yeah.
It was the Girl Scouts. I mean, what more of a picture of innocence could you draw? Three little Girl Scouts. You know, I think that's one reason why it had such an impact.
Yeah, and it's like we thought that was our safe place.
Well,
and our fun place.
And that would have been the thought.
To get that wake-up call so early in life that, no, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, was just mind-boggling to me, you know. But, again, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for calling in, Kelly. We really appreciate your call.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon, Patricia. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Good work.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wow. That's interesting.
Isn't that
I
something?
lived in Oklahoma.
Point of view.
I lived a lot in Oklahoma from 59 to 63.
Oh,
and
okay.
I had never had anything to do with what was going on. And the neighbor across the street was a Indian chief, and I cannot remember his name. I've been trying to think of what group that he belonged to, and I cannot remember to save my soul. But his daughter worked for the governor in the state of Oklahoma at the time, and it was very interesting because things that they would do periodically, I would never have. Well, come from Illinois, what do I know? You know, it's a total different world, but it is absolutely amazing how what they do, how well it works.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, and a lot of the things I think that really, I guess, put this in perspective for me, because I was really upset with all the people that the Native Americans protecting this predator. But then it was a time in our culture where all of a sudden Native Americans were getting more vocal about being abused and having land taken away, and you know, all of these issues of how badly they've been treated. So unfortunately, this fit right in to what they were feeling.
Leonard Peltier case and everything was going on at that time.
Yeah,
you know, the imprisonment of Leonard Peltier and all that, the sit-ins, the protests
so he was,
and things like that.
And he was saying too himself. He was saying, "I've been racially profiled. You know, you picked me out to make me the scapegoat."
He was using it. It's for sure. You know, it's terrible when someone does that, because actually those things really do happen, you know, to some people, and it's really horrible for people that really are victimized in such a way, because it makes everyone not really take them that seriously. Just,
it
someone's
waters
always
it down.
claiming it. So
yeah, exactly. It just makes it so you can't believe it.
Yeah,
but it was that time
in
our culture.
It's not a lot different than today. You know, we have people, you know, on all ranges, you know, of the spectrum here that believe one way and another way. And it's like one side just can't see how the other side could believe what they believe, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. It's very similar. It's, you know, it's like looking at, you know, it's like the whole eyewitness thing. You get, you know, 5 eyewitnesses to an event or a crime, you're going to get 5 different stories. You know, it's like it depends on what you know, happen to pick up on, how you filtered it through your experiences, and then there you go. But it's like, it was really frustrating to ever hear anyone, especially after I did so much research and found out pretty much all there was to know at that time about what went on. There was just no way he wasn't guilty. There was just no way. And to hear someone argue that he was, that he was innocent was so frustrating. But yet, especially through the lens of time, I can look back and see, what was going on. And even at that time, I knew that, the Native American community it was such a horrendous thing. It was so unheard of that they just couldn't believe it would have been one of them.
Yeah, one of their own. Yeah.
It was so against their nature and the way that they teach. So it's like, I get it. It doesn't make it any better,
No.
But I kind of get it.
No. But I like what you said, the lens of time, because that does change everything. It's not so much like it is now, but still, yeah. I mean, so painful for the family for so many reasons, and then this right on top of it. So it's, I wonder if any of these folks that stood up for him have ever been interviewed after the fact, and if they felt like they were on the wrong team. I would love to know how they came around to believing the truth instead.
There was one.
We see that every day right now.
Story. There was a journalist. I think she was a newspaper reporter or something, and she was totally believed Gene Hart's innocence. And so when he was acquitted, and then he was being transported back to McAllister to the prison to serve out his time for those other crimes, they offered her to ride in the car with him, and interview him on the way back to prison, and she wouldn't do it.
Oh,
she didn't want to be in the car
kidding.
with him. But yet she was like so sure he was innocent.
Yeah.
So I wonder what she's doing now.
Yeah.
She's still hiding.
Yeah, I wonder how she frames this whole thing.
Yeah. I haven't heard anybody that thinks he's innocent, like after believing that he was guilty. But I haven't heard anybody go the other way either.
And this was way before we really got a handle on DNA testing. So they were in primitive stages with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's been done now.
Now, did they do DNA testing? I
believe they did.
They pinned it on him? Because I thought that they said they could only figure out that they couldn't leave him out. I mean, they were able to get other people and say, no, it wasn't this one. They were able to exclude a number of men, but not him. They couldn't exclude him, but then they couldn't say it was him either. That's what I was reading about.
Did, but you know what? I'm going to have to look into that because I should have done that before we went on. But I know that at the time, what they had was his blood type and the fact that he was a non-secretor, and which is kind of rare, I guess. So this person, the killer, the evidence that they got from the crime scene was, matched up to that part. But then later, I thought they did. Now, I'm going to have to look and see because I know there are still people that still think it wasn't him. And if the DNA had proved it for sure, I don't know how they could say that unless they just thought it was, disinfo or something.
Yeah, and plus, this guy was a serial perp. I mean, he wouldn't have stopped. And I think that's the other reason why I feel that the medicine man that did this, I think the medicine man that did the ceremony to take him out did exactly the right thing because he wouldn't have stopped. He would have kept going. Like you said, he was escalating in his crime spree. So, it's just a terrible thing that he got that far.
Yeah, it was really something, and I mean, through the years, it's never really gone away. And then, of course, a number of years ago, I lost my own child, so it's like I really, commiserate with those parents now. It's like, what it feels like to lose a child. I lost a child due to illness, not due to, being horribly attacked and murdered.
Right.
I mean, a loss is a loss, but I think,
definitely.
But one comfort that I have was that, I feel like my daughter died peacefully,
Yeah.
And they can't have that feeling, they cannot.
Oh, no. The fear of
comfort themselves in that way.
Yeah, I mean,
and
you're
like
right. As horrible as it is for you, there is peace in that. Yeah, peace in her passing.
That's right. I mean, you take every little thing you can get in those cases. It's like, well, did she suffer? No. Oh, okay. That's one good thing. But if I had to wonder, like what she was going through, especially if it was, extreme
that
fear.
Would have been terrible.
I mean, there's nothing worse than, being terrified. So.
Yeah, and being that helpless. I mean, you can't escape. I mean, this guy was so overpowering. I mean, not only was he a pretty good-sized guy, and these were little girls. They said they were like 60, 70 pounds each. There's no way they could have gotten away from him. And being so terrified. But you're right. Thinking about that, it's got to be torture for the parents.
Yeah.
But we do hope that you predicted, PK, something more is coming out. And you also did say something about the number 8 being karmic, because I know we were talking about why did this happen? You're like, where were the angels to rescue these girls, or something fortuitous that could happen that would have stopped it, and it didn't happen that way. But you said 8 being a karmic number, there might have been some of that at play too.
Well, 8 also deals with control and being in charge, and they were there, but he was in charge. That was the sad part about it. And there's a tendency, 8s and 4s being karmic, we never know what is totally coming out of this without looking at an entire chart of that. I think I'd like to take a look at his chart. I should have. You're talking today. A couple of things I thought about earlier and didn't do. I should have done his chart to see what possessed him with the situation as it was. Because there's a major thing there between that mother figure, something with the mother and father that did something to him. And I never was able to totally come up with what the answer was to that.
Yeah, well, definitely take a look at that, and we can bring that back around and discuss it again, because there is so much to this whole story, this whole horrible experience, and we're all obviously talking about it because we're still trying to understand it. And how do you digest something like this? How do you integrate it? It's just too awful. But again, it's like Kelly, being able to watch the docudrama and being able to call in tonight to talk to us. It's part of the healing, I guess, that we can talk about it. So hopefully there'll be more healing coming on the heels of this thing.
I hope so.
It
opens
doors that we haven't thought about before. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah. So, Rene, what are you going to be doing next? Are you coming back to the radio? We all miss you.
I am. I've been on hiatus now, getting toward the end of a 3-month hiatus, but I will be relaunching, and I will definitely be putting out the word when Night Vision Radio is going to be back on the air. It should be just in the next couple of weeks. And so I'm looking forward to that. Can I do a little bit of dancing on the show?
Well, let us know so we can announce when you're back and where you're back so people can find you.
Oh, thank you so much. I sure will.
Well, and thank you, Rene, so much for coming on the show tonight. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we so appreciate you being with us, dear friend. So we will be back next week, everybody, with another great show. We've got Richard Gallagher, Dr. Richard Gallagher, psychiatrist, exorcist. You don't want to miss it. We'll talk to you then, and we'll see you next time. Until then, on the Blue Highway. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural.